Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Alpha Hustle. This is the midweek review of Bank Nifty on how the market auctioned during the first half of the week and analyze how it's placed currently for Wednesday's pre-expiry and expiry on Thursday. So let's quickly get started. Good morning, everyone. Today is a Wednesday, the 16th of June, and the time is 8:30. So what we are looking at is the market profile charts of Bank Nifty to understand how the market auctioned for the last couple of days and what are the potential scenarios that may likely to play out in today's auction and tomorrow's expiry. In case if you're looking at the market profile charts for the first time and would like to understand more about it, I've got a bunch of videos on this channel, which I'll leave a link in the description below as well as in the iCard above. So let's quickly get started. So the market opened right within the 4-day balance that we had during the prior week on Monday, where the sellers showed strength initially and tried to probe below the balance low towards an important reference of 34,450, but eventually the sellers failed with no follow through whatsoever to the downside, especially below the balance of 34,750 and 34,450. Failure to get a follow through below this balance have led the short covering move back into the balance, almost with a flat closing for the day. What market had yesterday was pretty much a follow through. Market opened right towards the previous day's settle and stopped the one time framing to the downside and started the one time framing to the upside. So what we have yesterday is a nice P-shaped balance. That suggests that auction that we had yesterday was at the back of short covering move. So the references to watch out for today's auction is a balance that we formed within the P shape. So the rally high that we had from yesterday was 35,425, whereas the pullback low for the balance is 35,195. So the low end of the balance is likely to act as a support, while the high end of the balance is likely to act as a resistance. So the balance rules still apply. The pre-market suggests that we are likely to open flat to yesterday's settle. In case if the sellers try to auction lower right from the start, the initial reference that we'll look at is 35,195 to 35,200. In case if the sellers do get a follow through below 35,195 and 35,200, they're likely to retest the demand within the single prints that we had yesterday, and any acceptance below yesterday's low is likely to probe the HVN and the point of control at 34,770, below which the market is likely to revisit failed auction that's left below 34,750 and 34,450. In case if the sellers do attempt to probe below 35,195, 35,200 and sees a rejection below the balance, we are likely to head for the retest of the balance high, which is 35,425. Any acceptance above yesterday's high is likely to head towards the balance high at 35,550 to 35,600 levels. So any acceptance above is likely to revisit the prominent point of control that has been left at 35,640. So further acceptance above this 4-day balance is likely to head towards the broader balance high at 36,000. So the market is likely may continue to be choppy within this broader balance. So as long as we stay within this balance, we will continue to trade sideways, and a likely imbalance move is possible only once we move out of this 1500 point balance that we've been having for the last couple of weeks. So let's see how the market is likely to open. Welcome back. So the time is 9:30. And what we have seen is almost a flat to a lower open, where the sellers tried to probe below yesterday's pullback low that we discussed in the pre-market session, and they have miserably failed to get a follow through below the pullback low that resulted in the auction towards the high end of the P balance that we had yesterday. The market is currently trading back above yesterday's high. So the context is bullish and the buyers are in total control of the auction to the upside. And in terms of the volumes, some strong volumes have been built up below 35,200 and 35,195. As we can see, a nice volume expansion with some wide range candles. So the context is to stay with the buyers as long as we continue to trade above yesterday's high. So currently we are seeing a small rejection above yesterday's high. So it is interesting to see how buyers would take out the responsive sellers that are likely to come in above yesterday's high. Sooner or later, once the buyers absorb all the supply, they're likely to get a spike above yesterday's high and head towards 35,600. Welcome back. The time is 10 o'clock and we've got an interesting price action in the last 30 minutes. Looks like the buyers have been swiftly rejected above yesterday's high. So these responsive sellers for now seem to be strong, who led the auction to the downside. So we are at an important juncture right now where the prices are comfortably trading below the VWAP, suggests that the sellers are back in action, and we seem to be taking out yesterday's close too. In case if the sellers probe into the first 5-minute range and take out the buyers from this wide range candle, so looks like we are heading towards the downside. So I'll be very cautious in case if we start to enter into the first 5 minutes range, we may likely head towards a retest of the strength of the buyers that we had around 35,195 and 35,200 levels. Welcome back. So the time is 12 p.m. We are back to the day's lows after the responsive sellers above yesterday's high have swiftly rejected the buyers back towards the early morning's demand zone around 35,200 levels. So currently market is kind of chopping around between 35,150 and 35,200 levels. The lows for the days are weak, which are few ticks away from the highs of 14th of June. So we are likely to come back and revisit the day's low, while the single prints from yesterday are likely to act as a demand zone. So we may likely to continue the choppy price action as long as the single prints from yesterday hold the market. This failed auction above day's high is an important reference to carry forward. In case if the sellers continue to fail to get a follow through below day's low, then we may probably have an auction back towards the day's high during the second half. In case if we do get a follow through, then we're likely to head towards the revisit of yesterday's lows. So what sellers are kind of trying to do is to absorb the demand near 35,200 levels. So welcome back. The market has just closed and the time is 3:30. So it looks like we have closed towards the low end of the day's range. So the action for the day is that the responsive sellers that entered above yesterday's high have proven to be stronger, who pushed the market towards the low end of the yesterday's range. So this reference of 35,450 will be an important reference going forward. Similarly, the rally high that we had in today's session in the K period at 35,200 that acted as a support yesterday is now likely to act as a resistance for tomorrow's expiry. So now let's look into the different possibilities and the scenarios that may likely to play out for tomorrow's expiry. So the market continues to be in the balance of 34,750 and 35,600. If we merge today's profile as well as yesterday's, it forms a nice composite balance. So we formed a nice composite balance with a decent selling tail as well as decent buying tail at the bottom. So this is an expected scenario prior to the Fed's meet later today. So the important references to watch out for tomorrow's expiry. So the first reference is the composite point of control at 35,300. So in case if the market opens flat or within this composite range and starts to trade above 35,300, then we're likely to head towards the failed auction that we had today at 35,450, above which we're going to trade towards 35,600 and 36,000 above. While market opening flat or with a bearish bias, the sellers may probe initially towards the day's low. In case if you were to find acceptance below today's low, we are heading towards the point of control that was left on the 14th of June at 34,770, below which we are heading for a broader balance low at 34,450 and revisit the failed auction and retest the demand that we have within the single prints between 34,500 and 34,600. That's all for today. I hope this information has been helpful. If you find this content useful, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.